and we'll see you all at the end. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. It's amazing to see so many different people and from all over Dorset. I'd particularly like to welcome Deborah Clark. I don't know whereabouts she will be on your screen, but she's waving. Deborah is the Rural Evidence and Village Halls Manager at ACRE. ACRE, for those who aren't familiar with it, is the Action with Communities in Rural England, and it's the national voice for 38 member organisations across the country who make up the country's largest rural network. They actually reach 52,000 grassroots organisations in 11,000 rural communities. So ACRE is a force to be reckoned with, and they do a huge amount of lobbying for us with the government as well. Bernard Hammock is the director at Hallmaster. Now, where is he? He's got his Hallmaster banner behind him. The Hallmaster online hall and venue booking system provides a really reliable and easy to use online reservation system for church halls, village halls, clubhouses, community centres, and any other bookable function room. And it's really going to come into its own at the moment, where everybody is going to have to consider what opening hours they're going to use and the spacing that they're going to need between each session. Then we have Berzina Bien. Hopefully she's waving somewhere. Hello, Berzina. She is the director at Allied Westminster Insurance. Now, Allied Westminster is one of the largest insurance providers for village halls. Their village guard policy covers assets worth billions of pounds for thousands of halls throughout the UK. And it's been going since 2006 and really has grown very, very quickly to be one of the big leaders. So I'm now going to attempt to do a share screen thingy for some slides. This is where I don't sound quite as confident because I'm hoping that it's going to work. So bear with me a moment. Ooh. Nope, I think I need to go onto a slideshow, don't I? Slideshow. Okay, how's that? Fine. Yep, fantastic. So as you can see, the good old opening slide. It's July the 1st today, over halfway through this wonderful year. And we're talking about village halls reopening safely. And as you can see, the logos down below for DCA, ACRE, Allied Westminster and Hallmaster. A little bit of a plug for them there. So the latest guidance for inside community centres, well, this was only published yesterday, so we're all sort of starting to get to grips with it again. It's another one of those, you can do this, but you can't do that. But the key points, which you'll find on ACRE, premises that are COVID-19 secure, so you've done all your cleaning, they will be able to hold more than 30 people subject to their own capacity limits. But individual groups within a gathering shouldn't be with anybody else outside that group they attend with. So if you're in a corner of a room with your family and another family that is in your bubble, you can't go off and speak to anybody that's at the other end of the room. Unless, of course, you are 2 meters apart. So the social distancing between groups of up to 2 households will be required indoors. So you can imagine seating activities are going to have to be arranged accordingly. Thanks. And this is what I mean by the, you can do this and you can't do that. So we've got community facilities. It should not facilitate large gatherings or celebrations, and the wedding of up to 30 for weddings applies. I'm afraid we can't have any live performances, so no singing, no playing of musical instruments or anything like that. But you could play some music in the background. Public meetings and civic functions are permitted, so that's things like your parish council meetings and planning consultations. For example, if you're doing a neighbourhood plan at the moment, you would be able to do a consultation on that. Or if new buildings are being developed, you would also be able to go along and say what you feel about that. Then we've got the toddlers, school clubs, and I've just lost my mouse. I'm working on 2 computers at the moment here. After school clubs, toddler groups and youth clubs are permitted, but they can't do any indoor sports or fitness activity. What that means when it comes to toddler groups, I dread to think, because toddlers do tend to run around all over the place in my experience. Another really important thing is that, I don't know if you've been to various shops recently, but I've noticed that a lot of local shops have changed all their opening times. For example, my post office only opens in the morning, the hardware shop up the road only opens between 10 and 3, and it's really, really important that you find out exactly when people are going to open. And then you should be able to tell people, if they're wanting to book your facility, what you're doing to make sure they're going to be safe in your hall. And if you've got a booking or queuing system, then also make sure that it's very clear that they will have a certain amount of time between going into the hall and cleaning it and then leaving it and having that space for the next person to be able to join in. Now, then of course we want to sort of confuse you a little bit more, if you haven't been already. Indoor community facilities should not permit sports activities that would typically take place in a gym, sports venue, or a fitness or dancing studio, because these venues have yet to be permitted to be open. So what do you call a sports activity? Well, lively ones like squash, tennis, football, all that sort of thing are really quite robust sports activities. But gentle exercise classes that aren't classed as sports, so things like yoga and Pilates, as long as you've got the good precautions in, you can do them. And then it says, only those services that are permitted to be open should be available. So we're talking about working safely in things like community centres, who will still be able to open for essential voluntary services, urgent public services such as food banks and homeless services. Temporarily as blood donation sessions, I don't know if anyone's been doing that. The early years childcare provided by a person that of course will be registered on the early years registers under Part 3 of the Childcare Act 2006. And then of course the indoor markets. Although I have to say, from what I've heard from various people about indoor markets, they're a bit worried about doing those because of making sure that everyone is socially distancing and using the loos and sinks and that kind of thing. And then to go on to the next slide. Outdoor sports facilities. Well, some of them can now open, not all, just some. Basketball and tennis courts, golf courses, which appear to have been open for a little while, playing fields and water sports. Water sports are things like surfing, windsurfing, that type of thing. So outdoor gyms and playgrounds can open from the 4th of July, but outdoor and indoor swimming pools will remain closed. Now I'm hoping with the outdoor gyms and playgrounds that will also include skate parks, because I have spoken to 2 or 3 skate parks that are really keen to open, because the children in the areas where they are have got absolutely nothing to do and are really keen to meet up with their friends again. So I'm hoping that that's included. But of course the devil's in the detail, and the government isn't always too keen to give us the detail. On the next slide, there's a couple of links there which will be provided on our website. So the top one is to do with phased return of sport and recreation for outdoor facilities, and the bottom one is to do with the safe use of multi-purpose community facilities. So when we look at multi-purpose, we're looking at anything from a village hall to a members only hall. You might have a members club, for example. I was talking to somebody yesterday that has an angling club, and they have a bar and sort of a hatch where they serve food from. So there's quite a variance between a hall that was built in sort of 1920s to something that's much newer and more multi-purpose. Okay, so now we get to the question time panel. This slide basically just repeats what I've said already about Deborah Clark being from ACRE, Bernard Hammack from Hallmaster, the booking system, and Bozina Bien, who's the director at Allied Westminster Insurance. Now, as Anita said earlier, we want to do it so that they've got the questions already. They're all going to answer them. The questions are very, very varied. And given that there's 100 and however many of you, there was just no way that we were going to be able to answer everybody's questions. So what we've tried to do is make sure that the questions cover as many different topics as possible. As we said earlier, if we miss something out, don't worry, because we will take note of any questions that you put in the chat, or if you want to ring us afterwards or email us, we will do our best to answer any questions that you have that we haven't covered this morning. So, bear with me again while I use my computer to get to the first question. Yes, okay. We'll worry about that slide in a minute. Okay. So, the first question, and we're going to do it in the order that Deborah will be answering first, then Bernard, then Bozina. Are the three of you unmuted?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brilliant, thank you. So the first question is from Anne from Holt Parish Hall. She wants to know, should we only open to local regular users?
Okay, right. Good morning, everybody. It's good to know that there's so many of you listening. Right, it's a really difficult one. You're the trustees of your village hall, and your village hall is there for your community. So you need to decide. I'm afraid I'm going to put it back to you, because you need to decide whether you should just open for local hirers. Your governing document will say that your priority is for local people and local users. If you feel that that's the safest way to keep your hall secure, by just allowing local people to use the hall, then that's the way that you should go. I think you also need to think about the impact. If you're doing your risk assessment on whether you should do this or not, will that mean that you lose hirers because there's people that want to use your hall that are then told that they can't? And what would be the impact on your community of a particular activity taking place? So it is actually, you need to decide what's best for your hall and for your community. Over to you, Bernard. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, okay. Only really, it's as usual thing which I seem to repeat myself at these events, is just communication, really, and ensuring that the customers know what to expect. And of course, the answer is not going to be what they hear. From our experience, there's always going to be somebody who doesn't like what they hear, but unfortunately, just got to stick to your guns as much as you can. And probably one of the most powerful things is to make sure your terms and conditions are updated so they do comply with everything. I don't want to burden DCA with even more work that they're already doing, but I know they have been very helpful with that sort of thing, with various templates. If you don't have one, sorry ladies, but I think you know what I'm saying, is it's probably a good idea to have a chat with them about that. But I think it's imperative they know the information before they start. I know it's fairly obvious, but it's needs saying, I think.
Rosina?
Hi. From insurance point of view, it makes no difference. However, again, if you are hiring the hall to somebody you don't know and it's not local, make sure you have details of the insurance. Some insurance companies will cover you for non-commercial hires, some will not. The ones that are that they do usually have a stipulation in the policy that this is for benefit of local community. So if somebody is hiding from outside the community, it's best that you have got their insurance details. And again, that you know about them a little bit more than somebody who just called out of the blue what exactly they will be doing, because ultimately you are responsible for what is happening within the village hall.
Thank you. Question 2. Our chief exec wanted to make sure that he got his question in, so we're doing that as number 2. Alex from Clark in Wimborne, Clark stands for Community Learning and Resource Centre. He noticed that there are lots of similarities between community centres and the hospitality industry opening. This is particularly relevant where food and drink facilities are provided. Are the guidelines working together or contradicting one another, and should both be used?
Right.
Deborah.
I think if we look at the government guidance that was released yesterday on multi-use centres and our information, it does not go into any detail about food and catering and that side of it. So I think the answer would be we need, and as far as I'm aware, we haven't put anything out to contradict with the hospitality industry. So as regards hospitality, food and drink, I think they should refer to that particular guidance. And always, if you're not sure about something, you should go back to the government guidance. Any information that ACRE puts out is just information, and it's our interpretation. So the government guidance is where you should go to, and around food and hospitality and retail, then if your hall is linked with that, then that's the guidance that you need to look at.
Lovely, thank you. Bernard?
Yeah, I think echo exactly what Deborah said. Just remember, they are guidelines. Again, it's the old adage of common sense, but common sense isn't as big as popular or common as people think. So I think it's just bear in mind it is guidelines, and each person has their own individual venue with all different set of restrictions and criteria and requirements. So yeah, it's just got to be done on a case-by-case basis. But I think the main thing is bearing that in mind, guidelines, it's not the law, it's not you must do this.
And Bozina?
Well, this one is actually quite difficult because from reading both, there are different rules a bit, and there are some contradictions. Personally, if I were a village hall trustee, I wouldn't rush to serve food and drink, because then you will have the PPE issue, you will have additional cleaning issue, but also you have to remember that there is still the conditions that only 2 households can meet in village halls. So in many ways, I cannot see how village halls can open widely to larger groups. Those rules still apply to village halls and community centres from reading from the government guidelines. So probably on that front, I would just wait. Just to remind everybody, insurance companies don't make any rules and regulations. None of them do. The only thing that they do is always say you need to follow all health and safety rules and regulations and government guidelines. That's whether it's COVID or not. And the problem is that when the rules are not clear, you don't want to be then accused of saying, well, you've interpreted that wrongly. So sometimes it's actually worth holding back until there is more clarity delivered from HSC or from the government.
Thank you. Tina from a West Dorset village hall told us that their village hall committee has been approached by the village school to ask if they might be able to use the hall for some lessons in the autumn term. This is to do with the fact that you can only have so many people in a classroom at the moment. At the moment, this particular hall is completely closed. Now, if they were completely closed, they didn't see any reason why they couldn't open just for the school. But if they were open, what would the safety issues be? Because the school only want the hall in the morning. So if they were open, they could potentially have sessions going on in both afternoon and the evening. Deborah?
Okay. Well, if they're going to open for the school and have sessions going on in the afternoon and evening, then they're open. So therefore they have to go back to the beginning. So they have to go through everything they would have to do to open the village hall. And if they want to open for just for the school, I think that we've heard this question before. And it's a difficult decision, isn't it? If they're going to open just for the school, they need to be able to justify to the community why they're only opening just for the school. And they need, as Bernard referred to earlier, to make sure that they've got very clear hire conditions in place, because and how long they're just going to be open for the school for, because if the school's taking over the whole hall, and then the whole committee suddenly decide in November, oh, we're going to open up, and the school says, oh, but you can't because we've got your main hall. So it needs to be very, very clear how long this arrangement is going on for. And I would imagine Bajina will answer this later, that there might be some issues around insurance. But obviously, if it's just open for the school, then I should think they would probably need to take the main responsibility for the COVID secure regulations and the cleaning and the assessment. So it's up to all parties, but everything must be really, really clear.
Yeah, I agree with that, Deborah, and it's yeah, great idea. You know, why can't you just open it for one group if they're the only ones going to be using it? Depending on the size of the village and what goes on at the hall there, you are going to open yourself up for flack from other members of the community. You know, it's all right for them. How can't we? You know, why can't we go and do our activities? So I think you've just got to be prepared with any answer with respect to that. But also moving forwards, as Deborah's just mentioned, is how long do you carry on for that with that agreement? If you've got people booking in for Pilates classes and short mat bowls and everything else, say at the end of July, but you've allowed the school group to go in there sort of almost indefinitely, you've got to obviously watch out for booking clashes, and again, potential flack from hirers, certainly irregulars as well, who, let's face it, are the bread and butter of the community, bringing the income in, generally speaking, for the halls. So I think there's a few things just to flag up there, really.
Okay.
From insurance point of view and wider point of view, we had quite a lot of inquiries from halls asking whether they can allow schools to use it. In cases like that, absolutely supportive for schools to use village halls. If they are the only users, the agreement needs to be that school is totally responsible for all the cleaning and all the health and safety aspect. If there is a shared use, then you become jointly responsible. You have to remember that those children are part of the community, and village halls are there to support the community. Trying to assess how long it will take is almost impossible at the moment, because I guess everything depends how long the COVID crisis will last. So from that point of view, it probably should be tied to what the government does advise, rather than trying to put specific deadlines. But also, sports inside probably will not happen, and wider gatherings for quite some time. And if they're able to happen, then schools will be able to go back to how they worked before. So the two are complementary. So I definitely wouldn't rule out use of the school. If anything, try to support it, because the children of those parents later on will use the hall more.
Lovely, thank you.
Could I just add something quickly to that particular question, because I think someone on the chat has just flashed up about Ofsted. So there might be other regulations that schools have to comply with that the village hall might need to be aware of.
Lovely, thank you, Deborah. Thank you. Lisa from Fontmell Magna Village Hall says, the information from ACRE has been extremely helpful in preparing to reopen our village hall, but she's struggling to find similar guidelines to open their under 12 play area, which has been closed since the 20th of March. On the government website, there is the assumption that playgrounds, outdoor play parks, etc. are managed and controlled by the local authority. But in Fontmell Magna, the playground is owned and managed by the Village Hall Management Committee. What should we do? Who would like that one?
Well, I'll start first, have a stab at it. Yeah, I'm quite aware that the only guidance for for local small like playgroups and things is the government guidance. I think it's because a lot of the national organisations have decided not to produce their own guidance, but just to rely on the government one or information. And it's a question that we've asked. So we have asked the question of the government departments about how they're going to cope with these small playgrounds where children and families are just going to go up the road and go down the slide, and what can they do about it? So at the moment, it's something that we're still asking questions about, but hopefully we might be able to put a small bit in our information sheet, which we are at this moment, well, not me personally, but my colleagues are busy updating. So hopefully by the end of the week, our information sheet will be updated in line with everything else.
Yeah, nothing further to add particularly. I mean, obviously, if you've got loads of kids charging around on the playground, it begs the question, who's responsible for cleaning up? And each time one goes down a slide, has it got to be cleaned, etc.? That's something only you can answer, I'm afraid, if someone's prepared to stand there and do that. Yeah, very difficult one, that, I think. Well,
from insurance point of view, again, we can't tell you simply because we don't know what the government is requiring. So my attitude personally would be, if in doubt, do not feel that you have to open the playgrounds. And if anybody complains, refer them to the government guidelines saying, look, we're waiting for clarity. Because we would not expect Village Hall Management Committee and volunteers to be standing there trying to police the playgrounds and clean after every child and make sure that they complied with the 2 meter rules, etc. It would be just physically impossible. So for that, just please wait for the clarity.
Thank you. Celia from Holt Village Hall asks, Dorset food and drink producers want to make the most of the fantastic produce made and sold by their members, and they want to trade in different locations across Dorset in a safe and COVID secure way. They are looking for outdoor venues for small sort of 10 to 15 stalls, sort of a pop-up Dorset food and drink producer market to bring the best of the Dorset larder to local communities. Now that question, from giving you the background there, is, could they use the car parks of the village and parish halls and allow the stall holders to use the hall toilets and hand washing facilities, obviously subject to insurance, etc.? Is that something that would be okay?
Village halls are allowed to open for indoor markets inside their halls, and they have been from, I think it was the 15th of June when it changed. So if they can hold indoor markets legally, even now, before the 4th of July, I don't see any reason why they can't hold outdoor ones, subject to whatever Virginia is going to tell us about the insurance. If the hall, so using the toilets, the conveniences, then so long as, I don't see why, so long as the village hall haven't done their risk assessment and got all the proper social distancing rules and regulations in place, I can't see why they wouldn't be able to do that. But obviously, if the hall isn't open and the risk assessment hasn't been done on the facilities, then it might be difficult for the people for the indoor market to use it. So it's balancing the two. Yeah, it's a difficult one, but they can open for indoor markets anyway. So that would be my.
Yeah, I mean, it's no different to walking down a high street to a certain degree, because you've got shops, various shops open now selling food. which you can walk into. Personally, if it was me, I wouldn't bother opening the loos up. Just remove that out of the equation altogether, and then, you know, if they want to hire the car park to operate, they've all got their own gels and you know, necessary PPE equipment and so on. Personally, I wouldn't see there's any particular problem as long as the usual social distancing rules are adhered to. So I can't say any more than that, really.
Yes, with this one, if you're organizing the outdoor market, use of a car park, absolutely no problem whatsoever, just the basic risk assessment for the trips and slips. When it comes to use of the toilet facilities, that's a different ballgame, because if you are allowing that, then you absolutely must comply with a few things: cleaning, documenting the cleaning, but also recording who used it for track and trace, and keeping that information for up to 21 days. That is actually in the government guidelines published yesterday. Anybody who enters the village hall, you have to record their details, including contact details, and keep it for 21 days for the purpose of track and trace.
Thank you. I think that's a very important thing to note, because people probably haven't really thought about the fact that they are going to have to get everybody to say who they are. How would GDPR affect keeping of that list and having that information?
It's not a problem, because you're asking their permission, and that is part of the agreement, and you're telling them the purpose why you're keeping that information for 21 days. Obviously, if you then have got any outbreak and you need, then you may need to even you definitely will need to contact your insurance company if you have got an outbreak immediately, whether something major will happen or not. You will need to do that, but also you may have to contact HSC as well, if for the guidelines. So that actually will become quite burdensome for village halls. But that's in the guidelines from yesterday.
Yeah. I think it is mentioned in there, but I think it says as best as they possibly can. So it doesn't set any rigid system about how you have to record them. But it's worth reading it. It's just a small section in the guidance.
Thank you. Anne from Verwood Memorial Hall is really worried about the cleaning regimes. She says, we cannot have our cleaner going in 3 times a day, cleaning each hall, committee room, stage, cleaning equipment, brooms, vacuum cleaners, dustpans. You get the picture. Cleaning after usage is usually done by the hirer, so the equipment would have to be cleaned every time. There's the expense of the cleaner, which would make us overspend. We don't want to shut the hall as we are worried about loss of community cohesion, but given the amount of cleaning that's going to have to be done, we're concerned that we're not going to be able to cope with it. Now, this particular village hall committee is, they're all over 70, and great proportion of their users are also over the age of 70. And she said to me yesterday that she's concerned because there's an awful lot of people that are elderly and very, very frail and could just about manage to get into the hall and sit down at a table. She doesn't think that they've got the capacity to be able to clean up after themselves. So how would a situation like that be dealt with?
I think it goes back to the committee deciding whether it's practical and sensible in that community to actually open the hall. If absolutely everybody and the majority of the users are elderly and vulnerable, then maybe they're not all ready to be coming back together yet anyway. And I do realise on the other side you have to balance with the fact that they might need the hall because they might want the social interaction because of health and well-being, mental health issues. But it's a difficult one. Once again, it's down to risk assessment. It's down to what the hall is being used for. It's down to common sense. So if I think you have to decide and look at our information sheet about the steps to keeping the hall cleaner. Are you going to clean? Who's going to do the cleaning before and after is absolutely a decision for the committee. We can't tell you how to clean. There was something else that I was going to say that has popped out of my head, and it might come back. It might come back in a minute. But yeah, it's a really difficult one, cleaning. But yes. You just need to follow the government guidance as much as you can, and hopefully our practical information that we've provided will help. But I suppose if a group isn't using the kitchen, then you're not going to have to clean the kitchen every time, are you? And if they're not going on, if a particular group isn't using the stage, then you wouldn't have to clean the stage in between each use. It's just, it really is common sense. I know. The other thing I was going to say was, I think the question mentioned the cost, and you have had a £10,000 grant from government, and that is to offset the costs of issues around the COVID-19 pandemic. So yeah, that includes the cleaning. To me, that includes cleaning the hall. If you've got extra costs to clean the hall, then that money needs to be used sensibly, and that's one thing it could be used for.
Yeah, Deborah's literally just touched on something I was going to suggest, which was not necessarily use every single room. If they're looking at, if they're sort of senior members who want to come in for a coffee morning, just to, as she says, sort of stay in contact and connect with everybody, just make sure you just use one room and if necessary, physically lock the other rooms, make it very clear they're not accessible. Then you're just containing the cleaning to still one particular area. The other thing is, which we hear time and time again across the country, is try and find some younger members and get them involved too at a voluntary level. And again, we hear this going on, and youngsters are very happy to come out and help, and even probably more so with everything going on with the COVID situation. So it might be worth putting a few feelers out to some of their younger family members, etc., who would hopefully surprise them and actually step up to the plate and come and help them do the cleaning, etc., if necessary. And you've then got a new generation coming up through the ranks to help run the place too.
Very good points.
Yes, from insurance point of view, the responsibility for cleaning always lies with Village Hall Management Committee. From a point of legal action against you, you cannot, no matter what is in your hire agreement, you as the owner of the hall, as the party that is hiring the premises to somebody else, has got always the ultimate responsibility. So for instance, even if a hirer does it, your responsibility is to check and make sure that it has been done to the standard that is required, rather than totally rely on the hirers. So, and as Deborah said, the money that has been received from the government grant is mainly to be used for everything related to COVID, and the cleaning, and not just cleaning, documenting the cleaning will be absolutely crucial for the time being, because unless you documented that you cleaned, in the eyes of a law, in court, you haven't cleaned it. So make sure that you record the cleaning and keep the records for some time.
Brilliant, thank you. Jill Oliver from Pointington Village Hall has asked, as with all village halls, we have no income at the moment. A substantial amount comes from our monthly coffee mornings. I'm wondering whether it's wise or legal to restart these in the garden for the next few months.
Well, from the 4th of July, you can have your coffee mornings inside or outside. So yes, it is legal. It's a good thing for the health and well-being of the community. You need to adhere to the guidelines. So once again, you can have 30 people gathering together, but those people have to attend in their bubble, in their household bubbles, or so that's 2 households together. So you've got 30 people, but they mustn't, as I think it was Jo said earlier in her presentation, they can't cross-contaminate, as it were. They shouldn't be wandering around chatting and standing at other people's tables unless they're social distanced. So yes, yeah, go ahead with it. So
yeah, it's a similar question, sort of dressed up in a slightly different way
Yeah.
to the other questions, really. And you know, echoes of can we set up stalls in the car park and so on. So yeah, it's, if you've got the space to be able to do it, then there's no reason not to do it. Again, if they're concerned, sort of echoes what Shana says, was about with the toilets facilities. It may be necessary that you do open them, but actually just take that one off the list and just don't open them at all. That would be my suggestion, really.
Rosina?
It feels like if the weather is good and we have a nice English summer, do as much outside as you can, because it's safer, it's nicer, and is apart from moving the equipment in and out, it probably will be less cleaning and less issues than dealing with it inside.
Now the next question, I'll read it out, but it has actually been answered already. It's to do with the £10,000 retail and hospitality grants. And the question is from North Dorset. They've got a committee meeting on Monday, and they wondered if any thoughts could be given on the retail, leisure and hospitality grant that they've been awarded. There's been much discussion about it in-house as to whether they could use it for things like more efficient heating, updating the kitchen and all that sort of thing. But some people are anxious that the fund may be intended for other uses. I would say if you've still got that £10,000, please, please, please use it to support your hall through cleaning and the bits and pieces you need to be COVID-19 secure. I'm really hoping that nobody has now got a brand new kitchen because of it, because the government isn't going to be giving any more money out. So that £10,000 is going to have to sort of keep you going through, I'm afraid. So that's sort of the brutal truth. I know. So the next question.
Yeah, just can I just quickly add to that, please? We want to make sure that village hall management committees are aware that obviously nobody will be able to open fully. So your income is not going to go back to pre-COVID levels very quickly. That money is to last through longer period of time. If there is something that you must do, otherwise the hall cannot open because something must be repaired and you haven't got the funds, of course use it. But bear that in mind, that that may actually impair your whole operating later. But if you don't have to use it for anything else, keep it in the bank, make it last. Once the COVID crisis is over, you've got any money left over, use it for whatever you feel you should use it.
Yeah, I agree with that, Regina. And I think if there's another spike in the winter, in maybe January and February, and you have to close again, you're not going to get another £10,000. And if you spent it on your kitchen and you've got no income, yeah, definitely, it's meant.
Contingency planning, really.
It is, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you. Pam from Milbourne St Andrew wants to know, we have downloaded some very useful risk assessments from the ACRE website, including opening our hall for our village playgroup. However, since the Prime Minister's announcement that many facilities will be opening soon, our committee is not sure if we are able to consider hiring the hall to other groups or for volunteer meetings, e.g. the parish council, because this may affect many issues with the playgroup that we hope to preempt. Can you please advise whether we can hire the hall to public users from the 4th of July?
Well, yes, so long as you follow the government guidelines. I think, though, I'll have to go back and maybe check this one, but the parish councils, I think NALC have given out some guidance saying they would prefer parish councils to keep their meetings online and not actually go back to meeting in person. So whilst meetings can be held in the hall, I think NALC is giving out slightly different guidance. So yeah, your parish council might have different information to that the village hall committee has got. So you need to look at it in the round, look at it all together.
Also, obviously, make sure that whatever the group plans to do is one of the activities that is not banned by the government.
Yeah.
You can't allow dancing, you can't allow choirs, you can't allow arts performance, and quite a lot more. So you really have to know what they will be doing, and they will need to keep log exactly who is attending and pass that log to you, so you keep it for up to 21 days. And that will be actually crucial from the insurance point of view, you doing the track and trace, simply because if you are contacted and then you haven't got any idea who has been there, because it's higher-risk responsibility, and you haven't actually explained that to the higher, and they haven't provided you with the list, the legal responsibility will come back to you. I'm sorry to say that.
Excellent. Funny enough, the question, you've already partially answered the next question. This is from Monty, who is from Bridport St Mary's Church House Hall. They've drafted a set of guidelines, but a worry was how much of their users would actually follow any rules. How could things be policed? Who has the ultimate responsibility? And whether we should not allow certain types of hire, for example. Now, in this particular hall, they have really cool, a big variety of different things. They have Slimming World, yoga, dog training, youth dance, freestyle dance, Scottish dances, folk dance and ceilidhs, Tots Time, birthday parties, wakes, antique fairs, clothing sales, Weight Watchers, theatrical rehearsals, singing. Yeah, that's it now. But so basically, they need to know who has the ultimate responsibility if these people come in. So I realise that the people that can't come in are going to be anybody that's doing sort of active dancing, singing, that type of thing. But it's how do you police it? How do you make them follow the rules? And who has the ultimate responsibility?
Well, as Bettina said, more than once, the Village Hall Management Committee are trustees. They're responsible for that building. If they're going to open, then they need to have their committee meeting. They just need to decide how they're going to open, how they're going to do the risk assessment, how they're going to do the cleaning. They need to record absolutely everything they do and all the decisions that they make, because in the event of something happening, whatever that might be, an incident, or somebody thinks that they're going to sue the hall for whatever reason, then the hall needs to be able to prove that they haven't been negligent and they've done absolutely everything they possibly can to protect the hall and protect the users. So it's about making sensible judgments based on government guidance, perhaps with the support of ACRE's information if you need more information, but it's about recording everything. And that is probably as much as we can say. There are, if you look on the government guidance for opening, it does tell you the activities that you can and can't do, and dance and performance is one of them.
Lovely, thank you.
If Bernard's got anything to add?
Yeah, no particular comment really. No. It's similar sort of answer to some of the other questions really. Yeah.
I think a lot will be to do with communication. So meet with your groups, with the leaders of the groups, discuss it with them. Then after the discussion, you should be able to form an opinion whether that group can be trusted, whether you can work very well with them, whether they will be responsible and will provide you with all the information that you need. And then, only then, if you feel everything is fine, go ahead and allow them. And for instance, if you've got a group, let's say history group, should be absolutely fine. If you've got dancers who are very, very keen to go and dance, sorry, can't do. Although you can do things like line dancing outside distancing. So that could be an option. Maximum 6 people.
6 people in a line.
Yeah.
You'll be glad to hear this is the last question coming up, which is almost a repeat, I'm afraid, of the last one. But Duncan from Lee Village Hall wants to know what can't open from the 4th of July. He went through all the different lists that there were, and he wants to know, I'm sorry, I don't know why that keeps happening. I do apologise. Better. The things that he does in his hall are short mat bowls. Now, it said that bowling alleys can't open, so, but can short mat bowls be something that can be done? I don't know exactly what short mat bowls is, so I wasn't able to answer that question. Table tennis, I thought probably not at the moment. Yoga and Tai Chi would probably be okay because they can be socially distanced. Because cinemas can open now, I felt that moviola films would be all right, but no to music events. How do you feel about that?
From the ACRE's perspective, because indoor sporting activities have been told they can't start yet, but I think, I only read the guidance once, that was this morning before this meeting. I think there's something there about the lower risk activities, which is maybe things like Pilates and yoga. So I know that my colleagues have put in a question to the government this morning about whether we can get some more clarity around that. The short mat bowls is similarly, we're not quite sure about that at the moment either, because obviously, as you've said, bowling alleys. What was the other one you said, Joe? Is there another one?
Table tennis.
Oh, table tennis. Yeah, that's an indoor sporting activity. I'm not sure. I think it's another one we need to check. But I suppose if it's 2 people at a time, they're each end of the table, but they're still breathing at each other, aren't they?
Touching the ball as well.
Yeah. So I think maybe not. I think Anita's.
Sorry, just to come in, I read somewhere that single badminton was okay, as long as it's not doubles.
Right.
Because of the social distancing. But this is where I guess reading the guidance carefully is what is needed by everyone. Sorry, I just read that this morning.
No, that's good, because I mean that's the bit I think we just need some more clarity on the detail of the activities, and hopefully maybe our information sheet will be able to help clear that up a bit.
Do you feel that moviola, for example, that's very popular in the rural areas, if cinemas are opening in the big towns, then again, I suppose it would be up to a maximum of 30 in a village hall.
Yeah.
But they should be able to show a moviola film, shouldn't they?
I would have thought so. Yes. Yeah. It's cinema. I mean, if a family group is together round a table, and they're all on their separate tables, up to 30 people watching a film, I can't see there's a problem with that.
Now with the 30, is that 30 people plus the person that's opened the hall and is running the film itself, or do they have to be included within that 30?
I'd include them within the 30 if it was me, because you could then have 4 committee members and 4 people, and you're looking at 38, and there's only supposed to be 30 people in one space. I'd go for 30, but I don't know. I don't know. I haven't.
Yeah, I think you'll end up opening yourself up to the Dickie, who points out that there's 30 members plus the committee, and there's bound to be somebody who does that. So I would personally stick it to as a whole, including the committee members.
I haven't looked at the wedding guidance yet, so I don't know what that says, whether that's 30 people attending the wedding plus all the people organising it. So we might have some play there, but I haven't looked at the wedding guidance to be able to work that out. So that's probably another one for me to make a note of.
To add to that, when it comes to number 30, the guidelines published yesterday, which are not exactly clear and a little bit contradictory, say actually that the 30 does not apply to village hall, that it depends on the village hall capacity, providing you can accommodate the social distancing of 2 meters. And the fact that you need to keep the groups in bubbles. So there's an awful lot to consider. because if you have got a large family group, then you can go over 30, providing that self-distancing still actually happens. When it comes to weddings, the guidelines are only for wedding ceremonies. Wedding parties cannot be held. Not at the moment. So you can just get married and go home.
Oh, I bet so many people were looking forward to that part as well, as in having a wedding reception. That's such a shame. Well, I suppose that would be the same for parties and any sort of social gathering, really.
Yes, the same goes for wakes and anything else. Unfortunately, no to that.
Well, you'll be glad to know that I've come to the end of the questions that I gave to you earlier. Lots and lots of people have been asking questions on the chat, and my colleagues have been busy replying to that, and I'm sure there are going to be some questions that also need to be answered afterwards. Anita, are there any sort of burning questions?
There are quite a lot about meetings, parish council meetings, business meetings. Wedding receptions was covered, so I'm glad that you picked that up. But I think the best thing would probably be for us to go through the chat and signpost people to the specific guidance. And any advice that we have from ACRE and our other sort of regulatory bodies, so that they get the best information. As we've said, the guidance up-to-date guidance came out yesterday. So I think all of us have spent this morning reading and trying to get our heads around it as quickly as we can for today. It does take some time for us, as well as you guys, to read and digest and understand the implications and consider what may or what may not be allowed. Hence the question about table tennis. If I did read the line about badminton, then that would make sense that table tennis would be allowed. But I think we need some time to read and digest. So we will make sure that all of the guidance, both ACRE guidance and the guidance from the government, which includes outdoor spaces and some stuff about play areas that also came out yesterday, is available via the DCA website. Ray may have already put it up there. She's nodding. So the links to the guidance is already there. So I think it would probably be safer for us to do that and more beneficial for the people participating, although I can appreciate it might be a bit frustrating if they haven't had their question specifically answered. Now it will be answered within the next, as well as we possibly can, within the next 24 to 48 hours. And all I can say, I'm sure Deborah and Bernard and Bozina would agree, is that the guidance is changing daily, weekly, and so we're just doing the best that we possibly can to keep up to date with it. So please do check back in with the DCA e-bulletin and on the website and on the ACRE website for updates, because that's, as soon as we're able to update things, that's where it's going. I don't know whether Deborah or colleagues have anything to add.
Just looking at some of the comments that have been popping, few have popped again and again, and just to confirm, the ultimate responsibility for everything, health and safety, recording people, cleaning, is yours, unfortunately. You cannot pass it to the hirer. Also remember that if you have got a commercial hirer, check that they've got insurance. Best you have a copy of their insurance on file. Make sure that company still exists. Few insurance companies no longer do exist, and more will follow, unfortunately. And also, if they are non-commercial hirer, they might be insured on your policy. Therefore, the responsibility for everything that they do is still yours. If anything happens at your premises, it will be the trustees and management committee that will be asked to go to court, not your hirer if they are not commercial hirer. If they are commercial hirer, and you've got a hire agreement and you've got copy of their insurance, then that responsibility will partly, if they've done something wrong, you've done nothing wrong, will be passed to them. That's where it helps you having the details of their insurance policy. Some, whoever you insured with, it may differ. Some insurance companies, not ours, put in their policy that you must have a copy of every hire's insurance. So check what is required, because this time it may be nothing, and we really, really hope, but insurance companies are scared at the moment of legal claims following people falling ill. How that will pan out, how that will be defended, nobody knows yet. But the fear, I can see the fear in their eyes when they actually talking to us. So we all ask that you do all you can. You cannot eliminate the risks, you can only manage them.
I would think the importance, trustees do have a duty of care, and as trustees you also have a duty to use your skills and experience and expertise to the best of your ability. If you haven't got that, then Charity Commission guidance says seek external advice, seek professional advice. There is information out there, and there are people that can provide you with that advice and support. So if you're uncertain, check first before doing anything, and don't do anything before the 4th of July unless it's already been permitted, because the law hasn't changed yet, so health and safety law hasn't changed yet. So please wait unless you're doing the permitted activities, which are the markets, the essential services to like food banks, and those and childcare, then please do not do anything until the 4th of July, and you don't have to open on the 4th of July if you're not ready. I appreciate we've gone slightly over. I was going to do a little funding update. Is that something that people would find valuable? Just nod if everybody's, because I appreciate we're keeping you longer than we had advertised. So the main thing is, if you haven't had your retail, leisure and hospitality grant from Dorset Council, then please apply for it, because you will get £10,000, which, as Deborah and colleagues have said, will certainly help with some of those measures you need to take to get your hall open or ready for open and open safely over the coming months. So if you haven't received that money already, I know that letters were sent to a lot of village halls. If you haven't been in your village hall, it might still be in your letterbox. So please do apply. Jo has a question, or Jo's got a hand up. Jo?
Just to say as well, don't be scared when you look at the application. It talks about business. Everywhere where you see the word business, translate that to mean charity or village hall. It will still let you through with your charity number and any other rates numbers that you have, but it's just the way that it's been written, I guess, because it was from the business unit that supplied it in the first place. But you are entitled to it, so please apply. If you can't answer all the questions, they'll certainly come back to you and ask. Thank you.
No worries, thank you. Deborah?
I was just going to add about that. I don't know about Dorset, but I'm getting feedback from some counties that they're starting to close it. So yeah, as Jo said, I don't know what Dorset's doing or what Dorset's plans are, but just get on with it, because they will close it at some point.
I checked yesterday, it was still open as of yesterday.
Good.
But like you say, you know, the money, the councils have given out a lot of money. The money will start drying up. And the other, I mean, we've noticed from DCA, just looking at the funds, the emergency COVID funds are no longer, or there's still a few available, but they're beginning to change. They're beginning to close. They're looking at now recovery and reopening and what the new normal is going to be. So we are seeing a change in the funds that are available. So for example, local one, Talbot Village Trust, they have stopped their emergency fund. They are now going back to doing their normal funding stream. So if you're a village hall in East Dorset or Purbeck area, or in the conurbation, then Talbot Village Trust you can begin to apply to again for capital equipment. So if you do want that new kitchen, That's their grant to apply for, not the retail, leisure and hospitality grant. Their next meeting is in the autumn, so there is time to apply. Another useful one for Village Halls is the Aviva Community Fund. That's just opened. Again, look at that. And the National Lottery funds for under 10,000 and over 10,000 are available. So look at those, and look at those in terms of how you're going to support communities going forward. And if that means that to open safely, you need you need to hire a cleaner, for example, or you need to buy in cleaning equipment, or I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, you'd probably be much more able to do that, then they're the grants to look at. The other thing with fundraising is both the Institute of Fundraising and the fundraising regulator have brought out guidance recently about restarting fundraising activities and how to do that safely. So again, I know, because I gave Ray the links yesterday or the day before, I forget which day it is. If you're thinking about restarting your own fundraising activity, obviously it needs to be safe and secure in the same way as all your other activities, but there is guidance out there to support you as to how you can do this from both the fundraising regulator and the Institute of Fundraising, and as I say, the links are on the website. Another local one, or another one to look at, would be the Treemark Trust, which offer grants of £1,000 to £5,000 for small locally based charities with community focused projects that help relieve social distress, deprivation and disadvantage. That's exactly what Village Halls and community buildings do, so that is one to look at. Again, these will all be available on the DCA website and in our e-bulletin. The Marsh Christian Trust, grants of £300 to £2,000 for social welfare, arts and heritage, and they fund core funding, so your revenue, not costs. And if you're looking at maybe, you know, at Wilkinson's or another group, they offer their Helping Hands program, because it's not just funds, it's also support, like volunteers. So every store has a small budget to help their community. You have to go to the local store to get the application form. So if there's a Wilkinson's near you, then that could potentially be a source of support and also volunteering. And I think that's the other thing, is if there are, contact the volunteer centre if you need additional volunteers to maybe help with the cleaning regime. There are people out there that want to volunteer and may be able to support your hall through its reopening. The last one is that I'm going to mention is Warburton's. Again, £250. They use the grants are for something specific. So if you've got an item of equipment, or then that is one you could go for. But they also give product donations, and they support grassroots activities and improvements in local communities. So again, things that Village Halls and community buildings could be looking to access. As I said, we are beginning to see a change in the grants that are available. So as with what we've said in the past, please be as ready as you can to apply. If you can, have somebody on your committee that looks at fundraising, which I know most of you do, or a small fundraising committee, then task them with keeping abreast of the grants that are coming available, so that you can begin to get your funds up. Because I think as Bernard and our colleagues have said, I think Bozina as well, you're not going to be able to open to the same capacity as you were before COVID hit. So your income is going to take a hit. And so therefore looking at how you can mitigate that and stay open and continue to open safely is really important. So look at those funds and the fundraising activities that you can do to help you through the coming months. And let's hope there's not a second spike. There's so many reasons. So I'm sorry, that is a whistle-stop tour of the funding, a handful of funds that became available in the last couple of days. It is a changing, ever-changing, ever-moving picture. I guess it just leaves me to say thank you very much to Joe, Bernard, Deborah and Bozina for providing a fantastic session, answering all of those questions. We will go through the chat. We will provide the answers to the questions that have come up that we haven't been able to cover today. But I'm hoping that through our colleagues, Deborah, Bernard and Bozina, most of your queries have been answered, and hopefully you're feeling a little bit more confident about what you need to be doing between now and the 4th of July if you're going to open. But don't worry if you don't open on the 4th of July. Open when it's safe to do so. So that's it really from me. I don't know whether anybody has got any.
Can I just add?
All of everybody wants to say something.
A very quick one.
Bozina first, then a Bernard, and then I'll come to Deborah because that's how you're on my screen. I'm sorry.
Fine.
On a positive news, if any of you are insured with Allied Westminster and you haven't told us you are a member of DCA, let us know. Send us an email to insurance@alliedwestminster.com because we give a discount for membership. So you can, if you haven't told us, we are not including that discount already. We will do so when we get an email from you, and you can get a little bit of money back.
Brilliant, thank you. Bernard.
Same with us, but that was not what I was going to mention. Obviously, we have an agreement with ACRE and have done for many years. But basically, I think what I wanted to say was, you know, we're all going through an absolutely torrid time. It's fantastic that so many people have turned up today. It's incredible. I can remember 7 years ago with Deborah in a hall of 80 people. It was like going into the den of lions because broadband wasn't a thing around the country, and apparently, according to people in Yorkshire, it never would be. So it was, yeah, it's really fantastic. There's so many people that have turned up today to get all this information from the DCA and ACRE and Bozina. I think looking forwards is, you know, just trying to stay positive as much as we can, stay in contact with our customers or your customers, getting that information across, get some youngsters involved. Don't be blinkered by nostalgia is a phrase we use quite regularly. Don't just get stuck in your ways, and get some youngsters involved, get them onto social media. Just remind your existing bread and butter customers that you're still there. Of course, it's just sort of under wraps at the moment. They'll understand, but they'll also appreciate the fact that you are in contact with them and telling them that you're doing everything you can to get the doors open for business again as soon as possible. And again, once they are all open, I have no doubt that they will come back to you ready and willing. So yeah, just use the social media, just stay in contact with your customers.
Absolutely.
Right. Yes, just very quickly, just flashed up on the corner of my screen. I believe that DCMS have just released guidance on, or their sports guidance on sports activities. And from what I can see from a quick email from a colleague, you won't be able to have Pilates and yoga in your halls. Oh. But that's just hot off the press. So I haven't looked into it any further, but that's what it looks like, this email saying. But we'll be updating our information sheet. We hope to get it out at the end of the week. Fingers crossed. So.
Thank you, Deborah. We will make sure that you're informed when the new information sheet is available. So we'll try and continue to support you as best as we can with the information that we have. So all I think that leaves me to say is thank you, everybody. It is fantastic to have so many people join us. It's very heartwarming to see so many little boxes on my screen. So thank you very much. And you know, same time, same place next week. Don't know what the subject's going to be yet. That's something we need to discuss as a team, I think, after this meeting. So thank you very much. Go and enjoy reading the government guidance. Get in touch if it's not clear, and we will do our best to answer and provide whatever clarity we can. So thank you.
Thank you, Anita.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
the three of you, for joining us. Brilliant. Thank you.
Welcome.